Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode. And I got to tell you guys, this is the very first episode I am recording post Higher Ed PodCon. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what the heck is he talking about? What's a Higher Ed PodCon? Well, earlier in July, because this will come out in a couple weeks, on July 12th of 2025 in Chicago, Illinois, we, the EdUp Experience, along with a few of our friends, put on the very first higher education podcasting conference. We had 130 people attend in its very first inaugural, and I can't say that word ever, its very first inaugural year. And there were over 100 colleges and universities represented. I'll tell you, the most fascinating part of this conference was the range of people that attended. There were 4 college presidents there that have or are interested in or already have their own podcast. There were faculty who teach podcasting in colleges and universities who came to learn about the newest innovations in podcasting. There were producers and hosts. There were big universities and small universities and independent podcasters. It was absolutely incredible. What's the result? Well, once you do something once and people enjoy it, you had to do it again. That's why I've done 1,100 episodes of this podcast. And now we're on to talking about planning Higher Ed PodCon 2. And there's 2 things we realized. Number one, it's very expensive to put on a conference. We self-funded it. So we're going to ask our colleagues out there in the land of higher education that if you're interested in a partnership with us, the EdUp Experience for Higher Ed PodCon 2, and you can give us some space, perhaps discounted or in kind, we're going to bring the conference to your college and university. So let us know if that's of interest to you to host Higher Ed PodCon 2. And hopefully when you hear this, somebody will reach out. But this is something we offer as a service to our growing community of podcasters. Speaking of a growing community, I've got a guest with me today who, the minute I laid eyes on this guy, I said, I like this guy. I like this guy. You look some people in the eye and you know they've gotten stuff done in their life. They just sort of know how to get stuff done. And the rarity of the guest and the role that this guest holds is really important to the conversation of higher education. And he's somebody who also tells it like it is. That's why I'm really excited to have him here. I think for maybe the second time ever in all the 1,100 episodes, maybe the first time ever, we have a chair of the board of a higher ed institution on this podcast. I'm going to bring him in right now, ladies and gentlemen. He is Mr. Vic Ritchell. He is the chair of the board at Union College of New Jersey. Vic, welcome to an EdUp. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing just great. Joe, how are you?
I am. It's another day in paradise for me, my friend. All I get to do is talk to great people like yourself and find out about what's going on in the land of higher ed. How could I could never have a bad day.
That's great. That's great.
Tell me, as we get started and we talk about this episode, I want to know first a little bit about you. The audience knows by now you're the chair of the board of Union College of New Jersey. We're going to talk about that. But you're kind of legendary, my friend. You've been influencing in New Jersey for many, many, many years across healthcare, education, business, and industry. Can you give us a little bit about your background and what you've done?
Stay ahead of the conversation in higher ed. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe. $5.99 per month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.
Well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I began, first of all, my wife and I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and have lived in New Jersey all of our lives. And in fact, in Union County, all of our lives. I began my career as a senior executive of a local utility. While I was in the utility business, I always served on bank boards. Eventually, I was asked to become chairman of one of the banks, and it was a company that needed help. I was fortunate enough to bring it public, raise enough funds to convert it into a public company, and it became a very leading bank in New Jersey. I merged it into a bigger bank, became vice chairman of that bank. Eventually became chairman of another smaller bank. So banking became really my second career, but my most important career in the business world. While I was doing all of that, I was always active in helping people in the county. I've been chairman of the board of Trinitas Regional Medical Center for 30 years, and I've been chairman of the board of Union College of New Jersey, UCNJ, for 30 years. During that time, we've grown both institutions significantly. The hospital, of course, has become a major factor, and we merged it into Robert Wood Johnson Medical Center, which is the largest system in New Jersey. We have a great nursing program at the college and at the hospital, rated always in the top 4 or 5 in the region, not just New Jersey, but the entire Northeast region. Union College has become a major player in not just New Jersey, but the country. As you, I think, know, we are an Aspen Award winner and have become, a finalist, and we're rated in the top 10. One of the reasons we are so good at Union is because we hired a fantastic president, Maggie McMiniman, and she's a great leader. She and I work very, very closely together. So that's sort of my story.
It's a really good story, and I would dare say that the story is
amazing.
If you didn't know, we have some sound effects we like to use here, Vic, to spice it up a little bit. Let's just be honest, though. I don't think there are many people out there that are chair of a board of a higher ed institution for 30 years. 30 years. That's insane to think about, the amount of passion you must have, the amount of dedication to service, the time investment, the trials and tribulations, the cycles of higher education that you have probably seen over time, the ups and downs. That takes commitment. What has kept you going for 30 years to be a chair of a board of a higher ed institution and a hospital? You know, it just, the commitment is crazy.
You know, Joe, that's a great question. And the answer is really simple. I have never gotten better satisfaction and been happier than to be able to help somebody be as good as they can be. And I'll give you a couple of stories to demonstrate that. One day, maybe 15 years ago, I was walking down the hall at the college, and a lady stopped me. And she said, "I think you're Mr. Ritchell." I said, "Yeah, I'm Vic Ritchell." She said, "I want to thank you for my life."
Wow.
I said, "I beg your pardon?" She said, "I want to tell you my story." She said, "I came to the United States from Colombia and could not speak English. So I was cleaning toilets. I enrolled at Union College to learn English as a second language. Once I became proficient in English, I enrolled at the college and became a nurse. After I graduated from Union College, I went to Columbia and got my bachelor's.
Wow.
I am now the head nurse at Sloan Kettering." She said, "I raised 3 boys. 2 of them are now doctors, and one's a lawyer." And she said, "If it wasn't for Union County College, I never would have done it." Now, that story is one. But Joe, honestly, I could tell you many, many more. And they just exhibit the fact that by helping somebody achieve their life's dream and to reach out and be the best they can be, you touch everybody. And all the people they touch are now better because of what happened at the college. So
that's incredible.
Andrea and I have, we've provided 3 scholarships every year for 30 years. So we've put through almost 100 kids.
That's amazing.
And just think about that. Then they became parents and they have kids and they've touched people and done things. And that's just our story. There's lots of other people doing even more. So to me, that's the reason that you keep going. I think the community college mission is the single best education mission in the country.
Wow. That is such a powerful story. The multiplier effect.
Yep.
Right? Like that's what you're after. Those 100 kids have families who have kids who put their kids in education because they're better off from the scholarship. I mean, it's just really, when you think about that, also the economic impact, which I do want to get to later, but I want to first talk about the president board chair relationship, or president board relationship in general.
Yep.
It's well known in higher ed, for anybody that studies, your thought leaders, that the success of the institution is largely predicated, maybe almost, I mean, it could succeed or fail based on the relationship of the board chair and the president and the board in general. There has to be a really tight relationship there, because if the president doesn't have the support of the board, they can't execute on the strategic plan. There's going to be negative inertia that's always created in higher education. There's always a resistance to change. And if there's friction, sometimes there's healthy friction and there's unhealthy friction. And that board chair and president relationship phrase, eventually you're going to have turnover. You're going to have a new person come in. You're going to have to start from scratch and so many things. Give us from we hear it from presidents all the time, that I got to have a great relationship with my board. Tell us from the board chair perspective, how you think about the hiring, the monitoring, and the overall relationship you have with the president in order to achieve the mission.
It all starts with the selection process. When you select a president, you need to review and evaluate candidates, not just on their technical skill or their academic background, but the quality of their personality, the reason they're doing what they're doing. You know, ego is a very, very serious and important part of all of our lives. If it's not managed properly, it can bring all sorts of negatives. But if it's done properly and kept in its proper place within our lives, it can be a really enormous benefit. When you interview people, you need to try to figure out, how will this person react to the assignment they have of being the chief operating officer of a college, and understanding that there is a relationship with the policymakers. So it starts with the selection process. At Union County College of New Jersey, we were enormously fortunate to be able to find someone like Maggie McMiniman. She is absolutely, unequivocally phenomenal. She's a great leader. She has a great style, and she really understands that her job is to carry out the mission. The mission is created by the policy developed by the board in collaboration with the president. And once you have that understanding, once the board understands it has to stay in its lane, and Joe, I'll tell you, that's not an easy thing. There are some board people who think they're managers. The job of the chair is to make sure everybody understands. If you stay in your lane, if you do what you have to do, which is help guide this place to the mission we've created, create the policy that takes us there, but stay out of the day-to-day and let the president do what she has to do. That's been my job. I do that very effectively. I've only had a couple of times when I've had to control somebody, but I have. It needs to be done the right way. Maggie and I get along enormously well. I mean, we've been together for a long time and never, ever, ever had a point where we had a problem. Not one. But it's because we talk things out, we evaluate together, we discuss, and then we move to our different lanes. Maggie runs it, and I make sure that we help her. It's basically as simple as that.
It's a simple story, but it can get very complicated for schools that don't have that level of relationship or seek to find it. And there are a lot of boards out there and a lot of colleges in general that have a revolving door at the presidential level. You have presidents that leave because of they feel that their relationship with the board is not solid, over your 30 years. So by the way, before I ask the question, I do want to shout out Maggie, who I know well, who has been a guest on this podcast before, who has then come and co-hosted this podcast. Although she was more the host than the co-host. She think about Maggie. She likes to get in there and scrap. So she kind of took over and I let her go. But over the other 15 years, because you've had her for 15 years, were you searching for the Maggie? Did you have other good leaders? Were you struggling in those first 15 years to find that transformational leader? Is it about timing? Because there is a piece that I've heard from many that you have to find the president for the time of the institution too. Maybe that's an academic time for the institution. Maybe it's a transformational time for the institution. Maybe it's a status quo time. Can you talk about that first 15 years? Did you have the luck that you wanted to have in leadership? And is there a point in time that you have to have a certain type of leader?
Well, first of all, I think there is a point in time when you have to have a certain leader. There are certain people and certain times when you need someone who is more a manager of space and control than a creative innovator. Maggie clearly is a creative innovator. The first 15 years of my chairmanship, we had just merged from being a private college, known as Union College, into being a public college after we merged with the Vocational and Technical Institute and became a public county college. At that point, we needed someone who was able to manage that interface and collect and bring together those different units. And we did have somebody who did that effectively. We then needed to make a change and got another president who was a facilitator, not necessarily a creator, but a facilitator. And there came a time when we were at a point where we realized we really needed to have a creative innovator. And that's where Maggie came in. And it's been a great, great ride with her.
Do you think, there's you kind of alluded to a little bit that there are times, although minimal on your side, when boards maybe confuse their role or need clarity on their role. There are board members, and I've been seen it happen myself, that are really trying to get into the details of the institution. That can be really disruptive to the president and or others. Sometimes I've seen board members start contacting other administrators around the president. Is there you mentioned it, there's been a couple of times. Do you see that happen either in your board or other boards that you've had, maybe other board members that you've had over time, or because you've been there so long, there's you have the fence that's been created so everybody knows it, and there aren't sort of violations in that way.
Yeah.
And how do you think about that control level?
Well, it's a very important question, Joe, and it's critical. Your question is critical to finding the answer that helps you develop the right approach to run whatever the institution is. I'm chairman of 5 different organizations right now, currently, the hospital, the college, and 3 other institutions. And in every case, one of the tricks to success is making certain, as I said earlier, that everybody understands how important their lane is, but to stay in their lane. Yep. Have I had examples of board members who have tried to get out of the lane? Absolutely. Have I controlled it? Absolutely. And the reason that we are good is because it was controlled appropriately and quickly. A lot of the reason why board members step out of their lane is ego. People think that they are great managing. Pardon?
They think they know better.
They think they know better, and they think that their knowledge of management will help whatever needs to be helped right away. And so they want to jump in. And it's so destructive if you allow it to happen. There are many ways to skin a cat. There's lots of ways to solve a problem. but the problem needs to be solved by the person who has the responsibility to solve it.
Yeah.
If you get other people involved and use their system, it may solve the problem, but it doesn't allow for the accountability and the control that you need to get to the right place. So I've been very, very, detailed in making certain that that doesn't happen in all of the organizations, the hospital, the college, and the other organizations that I chair.
That's so interesting. But the five, you chair of 5 boards.
Yeah, that's right.
That's crazy. That's awesome and crazy simultaneously. How does higher ed, being a chair of a board of a higher ed institution, the knock is on higher ed. We're slow to change. We're not adapting to the times fast enough. We have a lot of negative inertia. There's lots of committees and of reasons that things get, there's collective bargaining and there's unions and there's all these different things that can happen in higher ed. How does the industry itself compare to the other industries in which you serve in terms of efficiency and business process and the ability to change, or are we laggards in higher ed?
If you're finding value in these conversations, consider supporting Elvin and Joe. As a supporter, you'll get early ad-free access, plus exclusive leadership-focused content. It's only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or even gift a subscription to a colleague at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Well, I wouldn't say we're laggards. I would say that there's a different mindset that exists in higher education generally. Educators, almost by definition, are very studious, are creatively interested in evaluating every possible alternative before making a decision. They're very deliberative.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work in business. Let me give you an example. And I used this example in a speech I gave a little while ago. Let's use doctors, lawyers, and business people as the 3 pillars that I'm going to talk about. Doctors generally are phenomenal at doing what they do because they focus on the specific problem. They focus directly in, this person has a tumor. I need to determine what it is, what the treatment plan is, and I have to understand exactly how to solve it.
Yep.
So that's a very functional, evaluative ability, and their training has taken them there. A lawyer, on the other hand, is very studious, looks at everything, evaluates every opportunity, and it's very difficult for lawyers to come to a conclusion because they're always looking to either argue or evaluate or suggest. A businessman, so that I would put those 2 categories in the black or white category.
Mm-hmm.
A businessman, and I'm a businessman, is in the gray category. I understand, and I think most business people do, that facts are critical, absolutely. And you have to be able to take the information that facts give you and then determine somewhat quickly on a timely basis how to take those facts and come to a conclusion and implement a plan. That's the gray area. And Joe, the world runs on gray.
Yes.
It doesn't run on black, and it doesn't run on white. Colleges are in the black or white category because they spend much more time studying and evaluating and not getting to the nut of it. That's where the board comes in. Because if you bring the right people on a board and you understand, okay, guys, we've got the best group of people as educators to run this college. We need to help them get into the gray category and get to the nut of what we have to do. That's our job, and we'll call that policy development. Now, the trick then is to have a Maggie, and not everybody does.
No.
Everybody has got to look for a Maggie, but when you find a Maggie, grab her, hold her, and give her the ability to do what she's got to do in conjunction with the board managing the gray area, you got a winner.
Tell it like it is.
I could do this with you all day, by the way, and have these conversations, because I think about the what you said and what I know of higher education after 25 years, that it's just now in the last couple of years coming to terms with the fact that it is a business in many ways. It takes in revenues and funding, and it has expenses. And if you have more expenses than you have revenue in any context, that's probably not a good place to be. And a higher ed institution is no different in many ways. Now, the student as a customer, there are many people that think a student is a customer, and there are many people that think the student is something different, that they're not a customer. But by and large, as an institution, we are serving this person in a way, and we're providing a service and education. And either they get what they thought they were going to get, or they don't, and that's going to hurt the business or help the business later. Have you ever gotten to the point where you've been frustrated with this role, UCNJ, where because there is so much kickback sometimes in higher ed? That's, I always say it's consensus is the enemy of innovation, and we are designed in higher ed to seek massive, overwhelming, over-socialized consensus. It's like you can't have enough agreement on something. We just agree 100 times and never do it in many contexts. Has it been frustrating for you at times, or do you believe that you have executed it and put in the sort of the business sprinkling that it needs to have?
Yeah, well, it can be very frustrating, Joe, and it can be an inhibitor. Yeah. But you need to be able to facilitate the difference between the studied concept of consensus and the controlled development of decision making.
Ooh, I like that.
That's where the chairman comes in. That's my job. I got to bring it all together. I'll tell you I'll give you an example. We had an issue at Union a while ago where the president wanted to make some very significant changes. Maggie and I had already talked about it in depth. She had my comments as just chair and president. Now it's time to bring it to the board and get approval. I had her go through her whole thing. This was significant change. It was going to cause a lot of turmoil. There was going to be a lot of pushback by faculty because it was changing their lives. Yep. But Maggie felt, and I fully agreed with her, that for us to get to the next level, we needed to make the changes. So when at the board meeting that it was presented, Maggie did her thing. And then I took over. And I said to the board, and I explained, guys, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to step up. This is where we separate the buckwheat from you-know-what. This is where we solve the issue of how management will deliver excellence and how we can help management. We need to understand every single member here needs to be behind this. If you can't be behind it now, we need to discuss it, make it better to meet your ability to get behind it, or we may have a problem. I went around the table and we had discussion. There were a couple of comments about change, none of which were really meaningful. I mean, really meaningful. When we finally got it done, I said, okay, not only am I going to ask for a vote, but I want to go around the table and I want every single person in this room to not only vote the way you want to vote, but say if you vote in the affirmative, you will fully and completely support the change. I got to tell you, Joe, that was transformative.
It's interesting.
When I did that, now everybody in the room was a player. Everybody was part of the team. And Maggie walked out of there knowing that she was going to make serious change. And not only did she have the board chair at her back, she had every member of the board behind her. And I got to tell you, from then on, we took off.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because if you think about the psychology of that, how many meetings that we all go to where you might agree with something. I'm saying me or you, but someone agrees with something, and then you leave that meeting later and go, I said yes, but I'm not really fully on board with it. And that's the crack. That crack in the armor of unified decision making creates a poison within an institution or a business. People end up leaving. You start to ruin the mission. The goals become unclear. So what you did, you got the vote. Made the verbalization of support be more than the vote. It became almost like a affirmation of support rather than just a yes.
Yes.
And now I've verbalized it, and everybody else has heard me say it. So now, if I walk away from this meeting and go, I voted yes, but I don't really support it, somebody goes, you literally said out loud, you support it, and you're putting your full might behind it. You're either chickened out or you can't be on this board anymore. Right. So then you create this honor code. I mean, the psychology behind that is incredible.
Yep, it really worked. And so when people that were opposed to it, where the change affected them, and they came to somebody, they had to have heard the same thing. Hey, we're 100% behind it. Make it work. And that's what happened.
The secondary question to that is, boy, I'm curious now. You got me cooking. Now I'm cooking. My brain's I'm overflowing. I think steam's coming out. Maggie, in that scenario, your president, Maggie, does her thing and presents, and then you take over and present. I can tell you from what I know of interviewing presidents, and 400 of them, the board chair does not always take over in a situation like that. Sometimes the board chair is a passive participant. And what I hear you saying is, and I'm summarizing, you can tell me where I'm wrong, you have to be very active as the chair of the board if you're going to manage this institution the way it needs to go. Otherwise, it's going to sit and do nothing. I mean, if you just have a passive board chair, like there's a balance of power, maybe power is the wrong word, it's a balance of influence to be a board chair and you're on multiple boards. Is that true, that there's a certain activity level that you have to maintain?
Absolutely. If I had not acted the way I did there, we would never have gotten where we had to go. And that's not blowing smoke at me. That's saying it was time for the chair to take charge of the policy side of the management of the college. The president had already presented the plan. My job was now to get the board either agree or disagree, but if we agreed, to fully 100% support it. And the only way to do that was to actively take charge. Now, once that was done, that had nothing to do with management. I turned it back over to the president. Now it's implementation time, and everybody steps back. It's the only way to manage a board. I will tell you too, Joe, that the creation of a board is critical. The makeup of the board is critical. You need to have people on a board who understand what their role is. And so when you interview people, and we just interviewed a couple of candidates, and when I do that, I'm looking at them with a third set of eyes. I'm evaluating not just their skill set, not just their personality, but what the reason is why they want to serve. Is it ego-driven? I use that word a lot here with you today.
Yeah.
But honestly, Joe, the control of ego is the key to success.
Wow.
If people can't control their ego, they will never be successful. And if people can't control their ego, they will cause other people to fail. And so you gotta make sure that when you put somebody on a board, they understand they're not the shortstop. They're a utility player, but a very important one who's going to help us create the policy we need. The shortstop, the president, will deliver, or the quarterback will deliver the excellence, because that's her job.
You mentioned board creation. Is it are you looking for a persona sometimes? Maybe somebody who has done X or Y in this field that could enhance the current board?
Well, sometimes it depends on what you have already.
Yeah.
But for example, you need to have people with various backgrounds. You need people who have a financial background, so they understand that when we manage our balance sheet, we're doing it effectively and not from the seat of our pants. You need to have people who understand the legal ramifications of things you do. So you need some people with that sort of background. You need people who have to understand how to execute, and those are business people. You need people who represent the community. So you have somebody or a number of people who maybe don't have any of those skill sets, but understand intuitively what the student or the customer, and I agree, students are customers, what their needs are and how to fulfill them. So you need to put together a composite on the board. But the trick is to make sure when you pick those people, they understand the reason they're coming on a board. You know, Joe, it's very prestigious to be a member of a board in the community. And some people want to be on a board so that they can say they're on a board.
Right.
That's not why you go on a board. You should go on a board to really help make a difference. So the job of the chair and the committee, the nominating committee, is to make sure the people that you're putting on the board are coming on for the right reasons. You know, do we do it 100% right all the time? No. But the trick is to try to get there as close as you can.
Yeah. And have people that are truly committed, right? And are willing to put the time and the energy in, because it shouldn't be a passive job. It needs to be active. You need to be thinking and looking and ideating and creating and passing those things on to the chair or whomever. It can't just be sit back and just vote because somebody presented something.
Right. You've got to, every member has got to be willing to put the time in. And some people, honestly, Joe, some people are more willing than others. Some people do more than others. It's almost the normal Bell distribution curve. You got 15% to either side and 60% in the middle.
So there's probably some presidents. We have a lot of presidents that listen to this podcast. Maybe they don't have a strong relationship with their board chair right now. Maybe it's rocky. Is that something that you think can be repaired based on your experience? If there's some friction, is it gone once it's gone? And how do you fix?
If the friction, and there's no question, I know lots of examples.
That's why I'm asking you, because I figure it's probably happened in your tenure somewhere.
Yeah. It really comes down to what causes the friction. If the friction is caused with intellectual differences, then you got to make a change. It's as simple as that. If intellectually the chair thinks you got to go this way and the president thinks you got to go that way, one of them is right.
Right.
And it's then the job of the board to say to the chair, hey, we think the president's right, not you, and you got to go. Or the board chair and the board, if you got to say to the president, hey, you know what? You're not going down the path we as a board want you to go. We got to make a change. So if it's intellectual, you have to make a change. And get back to the ego issue. If it's ego driven, if the board chair thinks I'm the boss and you got to do what I say, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So you got to get rid of that guy if you've got a good president. I mean, really, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's intellectually understanding the chemistry of people, and the chemistry of people is made up of personality. You know, I've always said it's not so important to be the smartest guy in the room. It's most important to understand how to use all the skills of all the smart people.
That's a good point.
And that's the trick, and that's the way you manage a board, really. If you can do that, and look, not everybody can. I understand that. Not every board chair is willing to allow the president to have the power that the president needs to have to execute. Some people think they really want everybody to think, hey, I'm the chair, I'm the boss. Well, it has to be done in a structured, organized way.
Okay, so as we round out the episode here, I mean, you've said so much, and there's such good information. The tips, as you think about what we discussed today, and you were talking to either a president or another board chair or board member on this call who just thinks to themselves, what does it take to be a good chair of the board or board member in general? What are those couple of quick 2-3 things, pieces of advice you'd leave us with?
Well, I think to be a good chair, you need first to have respect for every person involved, to understand everybody that is involved, the president and the president's staff, and every board member principally is there to serve and to provide the assistance and guidance that the institution needs to be the best that it can be. So that's the very first thing. The second thing, I think, is to be willing to make certain everybody stays in their lane, to work it out. The chair needs to explain to everybody what their job is. If everybody understands not everybody's going to be the quarterback, some people are going to be somebody else. And the board's job is very specific. It's policy driven. And management job is very specific. It's execution driven. And if everybody understands that, it becomes a simple problem.
You talked about the sort of the last question I have. You talked about the story, and if you actually think about what you're doing, you could have somebody who comes in UCNJ, gets some kind of medical degree, ends up at the hospital where you're chair of the board, where you go in for medical treatment. I mean, talk about the cycle, the impact cycle, the economic impact. You've been doing this for a long time. What's going to keep you going? Because you don't strike me as a man who's slowing down anytime soon. I got to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying providing the kind of guidance and help I am. There'll come a time when I probably slow down a little, but I'll answer that specific question because I have an example. Gary Horan, who is a recently retired president of Trinitas Hospital, which I'm the chair. And Gary is, I will tell you, in his lane as good as Maggie is in hers. Amazing. So I was able to hire two of the absolute best people in the world for what they do. But Gary Horan one day needed to go to his own hospital for a somewhat emergent and, thank God, not all that serious problem. And when he was in his hospital bed, he was being taken care of by a nurse that had graduated from our nursing school. And the doctor that he had taught at the nursing school.
Love it.
So there's a perfect example where the president of the hospital was being treated by his own nurse that he taught.
Love it. And the impact that you play on the board is incredible to be able to do that. I want to leave you with the last word, Vic. What else do you want to say to the audience about your time serving higher education? Any other things that you want to plug and have people check out, work that you're doing that we should follow, or anything about? By the way, we didn't talk about the Aspen piece for UCNJ as much as we probably should have. So if you want to talk about that briefly, that'd be great too.
Support the podcast trusted by higher ed leaders. Get early, ad-free access, and exclusive leadership content by supporting Elvin and Joe for only $5.99 a month or $44.99 a year. You can also donate or gift a subscription at edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com.
Well, we're very proud to have been one of the 10 finalists of last year's Aspen Award, and we're honored that we were included. In one of the objectives I've given Maggie and our team is that now that we're there, we need to be a top 10 all the time.
Yeah, so let's win that sucker.
I'd love to do that, and that would be great. But to me, the real trick is getting into the top 10.
Yeah.
And after the top 10, I'm not sure. The evaluative process is subjective, and
but if you can get to the top 10 in multiple years in a row, you've got a working model.
And that's exactly right. So my drive to everybody is, we're there now. We need to stay there. That's I think the first issue. But secondly, I think it's vitally important for everybody to understand commitment is everything. You need to be willing to either make a commitment or not. If you were going to be involved for a long period of time, you need to commit. So I would say commitment is key. I would urge people who are thinking about service on a board or are currently chairing a board to seek other people like you who are committed to the mission that you have. There's lots of ways to do this. There are a lot of great schools being led by wonderful volunteer chairs and being administered by outstanding administrators like Maggie. So we're not the only apple in the barrel. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful places. But be the best you can be in your area. And that really requires people like you who are committed and want to serve.
I will say, UCNJ is pretty special. I just got to visit there myself, in fact, very briefly over a couple-day period at a retreat that you had over this past summer. The faculty, the staff, the commitment to professional development, to change was on full display. And boy, was it fun to be there. And you've just got a great team that you've helped build, Vic, and to be able to see it firsthand and just feel it, right? Like I felt it was really awesome.
Well, Joe, the last thing I want to say is that your contribution to our retreat was, you personally, was spectacular. We had a number of speakers over a day and a half retreat, and you were unanimously selected as the most outstanding presenter with the greatest advice and the best presentation skills of anybody. So I would urge all of your listeners, this is a wonderful company that Joe represents, and these podcasts he does are terrific. But if you want somebody who can provide you with the greatest advice you can get, particularly on AI and how you develop AI in the future, you need to use Dr. Joe Saluto.
Wow. Thank you, Vic. That means a lot coming from you. I got to tell you guys, please go check out this man's background. I mean, he's got Wikipedia. He's got a link out there I cannot accurately state the amount of impact that you have had on the state of New Jersey and all of the things that you have done. When I say it is an honor to interview you, sir, really mean it, to see somebody who's affected their local state economy, public officials, institutions. A little bit of a love fest here, but I got to tell you, I think that anybody that doesn't know, and I didn't know you until I met you recently, and then I read up on your background, and I just said, wow, I was so excited for this interview. You delivered beyond expectations, as I'm sure you do in everything that you endeavor to do. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the one. He is the only. Mr. Vic Ritchell. He is the chair of the board at UCNJ, Union College of New Jersey, among other boards. And you've just EdUp'd.